When I work with companies that are doing cloud deployment, the most common question I get is, what did you wish you'd known before you got started? Well, I put those things into an acronym called PARTY, because when you're done with this project, if you follow these 5 things, you get these 5 things figured out, you will be having a great party when you're done. Okay? The first one, P, is for pace. The pace of decision making is very fast. It's not like the old ERP days where consultants would come on site and spend a whole year or two kind of working through your processes and figuring out what you want. The deployment partners will come on site, they'll have some design sessions with you and your team. They will expect some answers on how you want things configured, how you want your processes to work. If you don't have those answers, they might show you some ideas or show you some options, but then you're going to get some homework and you're going to say, okay, by next Friday or by the week from Friday, we need to have these answers back, because they're going to go off and configure the system. If you're not ready to make those decisions quickly, what you're going to hear from the deployment partner are things like, oh, we're going to run into a problem with our go live date, or if you change your mind, that's going to be a change order, and it's going to cost you more money. So the pace of decision making is very fast. Have your decision makers in the room and be ready to make those decisions quickly. Second thing for party is the A. Now I've got a little game here. So A is really for change. C-H-A-N-G, change management. Don't wait till the end. This is not just about training, it's not just about communication. It's about changing and transforming your HR operations for the entire organization. And it's not just HR, it is your entire company. I like to say with the cloud deployment, your entire organization is going to change. Everybody's job is going to be different. I just don't know how yet, right? So it's all about putting together a change team, understanding what's going to be changing, and even the things that have nothing to do with the system itself or your HR processes are going to be different as well. So you got to bring in all these other groups within the organization, your web team, your IT team, your even things that you might not think have anything to do with the system itself are going to be impacted by this. So understanding what all is going to be changing and start focusing on that right away. Okay? So change. So P for pace, A for change. Next thing we have is R. R is the repetitious, the repetitive build and convert process. Workday, being the leader in the cloud deployment for HR and finance, they have what they call prototypes. So they build a prototype 1, a prototype 2, and a prototype 3, etc. And so every time you do a prototype, that's probably 4 to 6 weeks of gathering data, gathering employee data from your old systems, converting that into Excel workbooks, loading that up into the prototype. That's 4 to 6 weeks that you do over and over again. So a lot of times that's not looked at as a big deal for the deployment partner, because most of that work is done by you, the customer. So that's a huge time commitment, and it also relates to the data and the data quality. So that's huge, right? So be sure you're preparing for this repetitious process for building the prototypes. The fourth one in party is the T. The T stands for what we just talked about, time commitment for your team. The Workday methodology and other methodologies talk about all these different steps that the deployment partner will do, but there's also a lot of steps in the deployment methodology that will say client responsibility. So things like testing, things like the change management, things like data validation, all of those things are things that you all are going to have to do within your own team. And what I've seen through all my deployment projects is that the time estimate for that is very, very low in those project plans. So be prepared for a lot of time. Typically what I like to say is that the people you put on your project team that they work on the Workday project, the extra time they work is going to be the time that they do for their normal job. All the rest of the time is going to be done working on the Workday project. The other thing to think about from a time commitment is that your employees working on the project, in the past with ERP projects, the consultants would come on site and they would spend time and they would get work done with you. With these types of cloud deployments, a lot of it is done remotely. So the deployment partner will dial in and they'll have lots of meetings over WebEx. You'll get very familiar with using WebEx. And so that takes a lot of time as well, because you're being called out to all your other obligations that you're working on, and now you got to work on this project as well. And so the time commitment typically I see is very, very limited in the initial planning. So make sure you plan properly so you have plenty of time for your team to work on this. And then the last letter in party for me is I, not a Y. I stands for integrations. And integrations, a lot of times the deployment partners will say this is not a big deal. We have a lot of out-of-the-box solutions. Well, they are a big deal. And to me, in most of my projects, as I've done the integration kind of status meetings each week, those were the most frustrating hours of my week after week after week. So it's important to get the right people assigned at the right time, early in the project, get those defined properly. The testing and all of that goes with those integrations also falls back on the project team members. So if you've got benefits folks or payroll folks that are working on getting their own part of the system developed, they also have to be involved with testing the integration. So again, this kind of doubles up their time commitment. So if you work on those 5 things as you're planning your project, about pace and about the change piece early, the repetitions, understand what that looks like and over again. The other part being the time commitment for your team, and then finally integrations, you will have a huge party when you go live.